Giving space for me means the body mandate is this. I run out of energy every day somewhere between 1:30 and 2. It's
Mm.
not when I tell people like it's nappy time. Um, oh, I would love to take it. Oh, a nap sounds so nice. How nice for you, Trey. You go take that nap. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like narcolepsy. like
Yeah.
like I can't drive a car. I can't get off the couch. Like I'm done. My brain stopped probably an hour before that, and I probably pushed through another hour, and then I go and I nappy nap, and the nappy nap can
Serious nappy
be
nappy.
20 minutes to an hour, sometimes when it's really bad, hour and a half.
What is a healthy relationship to saying no? How is saying no really saying yes to ourselves? Your intrepid mental health explorers examine why this is an issue for so many healers and teachers. We'll dish what 3 a.m. Jenny tortures herself with and what 3 a.m. Trai wants to burn down. How we got to the point of needing to learn the word no, and how we aim to do it in the most mindful way. After all, you're still going to have to say yes to things you don't want to, but it's the mindfulness of the journey that's the real point. Welcome to part 1 of Bothering with Boundaries.
Meow
Well,
meow.
good morning. Meow
Good
meow.
good morning. What a morning it is.
Yes, we are both dragging it a bit, and we had other plans for today's episode, folks. But I don't know. This morning, it kind of came to me that I would love to talk about learning how to say no. And then when I pitched it to Jenny, Jenny, tell them about the book.
Oh yeah, I have The Heal Your Inner Wounds by Abby Wynn, which has been both a wonderful book and also one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. Um,
I laugh
because
in
it's just
love. I laugh in support.
um, it's just very like trauma focused. And there's a there's a whole chapter about saying no, in the Your Inner Child chapter. Um, and there's also journal questions for us. So at some points in the episode, I'll bring up the journal questions when we hit a lull, and it feels like we're like dragging booty a little bit.
Where
We'll
we've
refer
made
to the
ourselves feel bad for our lack of skills and being able to say no.
yeah.
Like, but why? Why, book? Why? Wow. Um,
Yeah.
so just another example of telepathy. It's Jenny had just read that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I was just, psychically picking up that it was on her mind. And I think it's a really, really, really valid conversation. It's a valid conversation to have at any time, but particularly now because the world is demanding lots of things from us that don't feel good to us. Boy, howdy, do they not feel good to us.
Yeah. See, it's almost like more you were tapping into my higher self, because I think when I read that chapter I didn't internalize it as much, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I say no when I need to, which isn't totally
Oh, do
true.
you?
And so now it's like you're bringing it back up, and it's like, no, Jenny, let's actually talk about how often you actually say no. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, fine.
Fine. Let's have some trauma. Jenny's like, oh, this is all going back to childhood trauma. I'm like, well, yeah,
Yeah,
it really
usual.
does. Oy. So I think we should probably start with like what is our understanding of what a healthy relationship with no is, and then we'll probably talk
Oof.
about our unhealthy relationships with
I was
saying
about
no.
to say, I don't know. I would have to look up a definition of what a healthy relationship with saying no is, because I'm not sure that I know one off the top of my head.
All
Because I
right, so
always just feel so. I was just gonna say, I always just feel so guilty about saying no, especially when it's like helping someone out. But I guess it would have to be like knowing where your energy level is at, and we've talked about spoons on this podcast before, but knowing where your spoons are, um, and respecting yourself and respecting that, oh, this is an okay thing for me to say no to as long as it's not like hyper emergency situation. Um, you know, I would say that's the best working definition that I can muster.
Nice, right off the top of her head, ladies and gentlemen. Explain the spoons thing again for anybody new to our podcast.
Yeah, and I guess we haven't talked about it this season yet. But spoons being the idea that you wake up and start your day with a certain number of spoons, and certain activities take spoons away from you or give you spoons, but at a certain point in the day, you are going to be out of spoons. It's very, very helpful for discussing chronic pain because, certain activities might take more spoons for me than they do someone else. And just knowing where your spoons level is at, and then just checking in with the people around you and saying, "Hey, my spoons are out. Like, I'm done. I can't. I'm
Right.
sorry."
Yeah.
Then ties into learning to say no, because at some point you're gonna have to say no in the day when your spoons are out, if you can.
If you can. And yeah, and lots to unpack there. So one of the things that jumped out for me was, if you don't, and really what saying no is boundaries, you guys, we're just talking boundaries. If you don't learn to say no, and you keep pushing on, I used to think it was just purely a body energy thing, and I always had everybody always said, so Trey, you have so much energy, you get so much done. And it took me a long time to understand that what was actually going on there was a massive trauma response, that I was stuck in flight, and I was burning through my adrenals. I don't know, about 80 times faster than a person ought to. You too can get a lot done if you basically do the equivalent of drink, I don't know, 7 monsters every day.
Mm,
But at
yeah.
some point your body is gonna shut down, and mine really 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 did, and it continues to interfere with my ability to get through every day with the same energy that other people have. So it's chronic. And I've done a lot to get into recovery. And as it turns out, a huge part of the recovery for me is to create the space required for my adrenal system, the cortisol, the
Mm,
thing that pumps the cortisol, to give it enough space that it actually can start downshifting. So if I was in, fifth gear for a couple of decades, I now run probably in third gear. And
mm,
then at some point, even that will be too much. And then I will have to park the car.
yeah. What does giving space look like for you?
um, So I think this is going to be one of those episodes where we give lots of tips and explore lots of concepts. So anecdotes, always welcome. Giving space for me means the body mandate is this: I run out of energy every day, somewhere between 1:30 and 2. It's
Mm.
not, when I tell people like it's nappy time. Um, oh, I would love to take it. Oh, a nap sounds so nice. How nice for you, Trey. You go take that nap. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like narcolepsy. like
Yeah.
like I can't drive a car. I can't get off the couch. Like, I'm done. My brain stopped probably an hour before that, and I probably pushed through another hour, and then I go and I nappy nap, and the nappy nap can
Serious nappy
be
nappy.
20 minutes to an hour, sometimes when it's really bad, hour and a half. And then on the far side of that, it's getting my body up and running again. And if so that's part of giving it space, is that's how I've learned to negotiate my day by day. And then there's
Mm.
tons and tons of nuances. I don't know, you were connecting to
It's
some of that.
it's interesting. So this is going to tie in, I promise. But when I was doing research for one of the things that I'm writing, my trans horror film, which I don't know if I'll ever finish,
You will.
um,
You will.
I was doing research on the 7 daily habits that they have like monks and nuns do. And like supposedly it's like seven daily things to do with yourself and of course with God. Um, and it actually, even though it takes up time to do those things, the idea behind it is it frees up more time for you in the day. And I really connect with that for nappy time too, because it's like, like it, taking nap sounds like it takes time out of your day, but in reality, if you allow yourself to take a nap more, you are able to do things more on the back end usually,
That's
or
right.
your day opens up a little bit more. Um, and I think learning to say no is learning like how to do those small things for yourself that may at first seem time consuming, but are actually time freeing because time is a construct and it doesn't exist. So, of course, you can do things to give yourself more time. Um, so
I
yeah, I
love
guess that's
that.
where I connected with that. Because
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm still at the point where I struggle to take a nap, especially because it's like I don't know. I feel so much guilt about it usually. Guilt. That's going to be a
Guilt.
huge part of
Guilt.
this episode.
This
Guilt.
isn't about saying no. This is about guilt, about taking
Guilt.
care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And where does it
Um,
come from and how does it start?
but then when I'm having a really serious day where I haven't gotten enough sleep, or I had like a bender the night before, or like I'm really sick and then I take my nap time, I'm just like, oh, that was such a good nap time. So
It's the
deserved.
best.
I love that.
It's
It's
the
the
best.
best.
I mean, there are cultures on this world that are literally designed around the siesta. Um, and,
Hmm.
I look at Spain and, every night, y'all, I hear stories of this and it's mystifying to me. Dinner is at like 9 o'clock and then they're up until like 1 or 2 a.m. And they get to work at kind of sort of the same time that I suppose Americans do, but then they stop for 2 hours in the middle of the day and they go and they rest. And I was like, that is what an interesting way to, like, it took them thousands of years to figure out that that was the way to do it, man.
That is the way, absolutely, because I'm such a night owl too. And I think that bridges really, really well because it's like, have you ever heard the term revenge insomnia?
Oh, I call it boomerang insomnia. You tell me your version of revenge insomnia, and then I'll tell you what boomerang insomnia is.
So, revenge insomnia is the idea that um, you will have a hard time going to sleep at night when you have spent an entire day not on yourself because you don't feel like you've had any free time. And so then suddenly your free time comes at night because at night there's no demands being placed on you. There's not a whole lot of people in the world interacting with you. And so it's the first time in someone's day sometimes that you're just able to do whatever the heck you want. And then the revenge insomnia kicks in because it's like, well, this is my only free time. I don't want to just give this up and go to sleep and start all over again.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I get major revenge insomnia when I have had a hard week of not saying no.
Wow. Okay, so what do you usually do with your revenge insomnia time?
um, So I would say nine times out of ten, it's watching mindless content like
Mhm.
YouTube or playing video games. Playing video games is a big one for me. I love my video game time. But lately, I've been super burned out on both mindless content and video games, and I've been back in the crocheting world. Um, and I could crochet for 12 hours straight, and I would love it. It'd make me so happy. My fingers wouldn't love it, but I love it. And so then, I'll roll around and 10:30 hits, and I'm like, but maybe I can just do a couple more rows and or one more pattern, and it'll be fine.
Dude, crocheting is as addictive as like Tetris. I mean, come on, you can't
Yeah.
stop with just one row. Hell no.
And it's so satisfying for my specific brand of autism ADHD of just doing the hand stuff repeatedly and working the puzzle and working the pattern, but then you get something out of it afterwards and you have a thing now that's tangible, a
Dang.
thing that I can gift people if I so choose. So it's like
Wow. That's
yeah.
beautiful. All right, so revenge insomnia can actually be a powerful thing because it's demonstrating to you that there is a mind body spirit demand for that, whatever that decompression thing is. For me, revenge insomnia is super super toxic, and I've been dealing with it all weekend. Where I had a particularly horrific work meeting, where a year's
Mm,
worth of work probably just burst into flames because one of my teammates, and it's not enough that I'm because during the day, like I have other. I'm freelance, so I have lots and lots of projects, and those projects need to be worked on. And then something about 3 a.m. Oh, baby, let me tell you, I will wake up and then I will stew and I will and there will be such rage. So I'm processing, that shadow work for 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night.
mm,
And nothing. I mean, it's an excuse. Of course, there are things, but I can't seem to break it up and get because if I went out and watched TV, I still need that 2 hours to process and to think and to think and to think and to think and to think. And I can't figure out how to do that thinking in the waking hours because it's nighttime thinking. It's that like what you were talking about. There's no demands. It's an unstructured world now. It's just me in the thin veil. And
yep.
all the horrible thoughts that I can think about myself and my team members, or whoever, or my friends. Or actually, I rarely think badly about my friends. I don't have those kinds of friends. Uh, but
Good.
you mix it up with folks, and then suddenly, so for me it's like processing insomnia, and it's horrible. It's horrible.
See, and I feel like that is the other end of things where it's like, mind, body, and soul. Well, okay, when you overwork your body, we kind of know the consequences for that when your body shuts down. I think the revenge insomnia taps into, okay, you've overworked your mind. And so now you need that time for your mind to reset where you're not doing anything, but you're still awake because dreaming and sleeping doesn't fully reset the mind. But then there's also the soul component where it's like you haven't done your soul work throughout the day. You haven't been checking in with yourself and seeing like, how are you feeling about things? How are you doing? Is there anything you need to process right now? And then when you don't do that,
Everything,
it ends up
everything.
it ends up coming up at 3 a.m. when you're on your pillow and your brain's like, oh my God, we're alone. There's nobody here to judge us how we react right now. Process, process, process. I relate to that one a lot too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I had a hard time getting to sleep for a long time, is because my body would shut down. And it seemed like my mind was tired. I was falling asleep in the living room, but then I go into my bed in my room and
Oh,
some
forget
sort of
it.
spells
Kiss
put
of
on
death.
me. Yeah, and it's like now I'm just stewing for 3 hours.
That's right. It's like we're saying no to our bed and the function of our bed, and I just want to there's a lot of I'm not a violent person. I'm a pacifist. But please know there's a lot of violence in me right now regarding how do I even phrase it? I didn't say no. I knew that these things were going to be problems. I thought I had mitigated for the problems because y'all, like, you can't always kick people out of your family or out of your workplace, or like, you have to learn to deal with them. And they did the thing that I knew they were going to do. And this goes, I mean, I remember in my marriage, oh, forget about it. There was nothing surprised me about what was happening in my marriage, but I hadn't said no to it yet. I hadn't figured out not just how to let my body know, and my little kid inside of me, like, no, this is unacceptable what happened. You're right to be angry, and I'm going to fix it, because it's the fixing thing that often requires us to give the big no, which is
Hmm.
the big rejection, which is scary and feels terrible, and it launches us into the unknown. It's the ultimate no. Like, I have to say no to this project because it was demonstrated to me that it's toxic to the point that it's disrupting kind of everything about my life. And I did that to myself, and I know better. You see, like, you said it, like, you didn't do your spiritual work during the day, Trey. It's like, no, I didn't. I didn't take better care of myself. So I got to do it at 3 a.m. apparently.
That's so real though. And I feel like it's just such a balance too, because it's like First of all, as you said earlier in the episode, saying no is about boundary work and about having healthier boundaries with yourself. And when you don't have those healthier boundaries, it's hard for anything in your life to be healthy because you're not actively making it healthy for yourself, and it can extend
That's
into
right.
relationships. Oftentimes it really extends into work because how can there's certain things you literally can't say no to at work. Like it's designed around that. Um, but I also feel like as traumatized individuals, we are not prone to saying no. Before you started the episode, you talked about how like it's programmed in us to not say no. And
Oh,
so
we
that
have to
also
talk about
means,
that. Yes.
yeah, and that also means we have to give grace to ourselves when we failed to say no, when we're in the 3 a.m. cycle and just being like, oh, I didn't say no to this, I didn't say no to this. And it's so easy to just be mad at yourself, but that's further continuing to not have healthy boundaries with yourself, because it's like you've got to give yourself grace. Like it's gonna happen, you're gonna fail, you're gonna say yes when you shouldn't have. Everybody does it, I feel like, and it's just such a common practice, even when you've been practicing saying no for years and years and years. I also feel like you have a say no meter where it's like, okay, I've said no too many times, I have to say yes to something. Like that's just how the trauma works. um, and then later on you're just like, I shouldn't have said yes to that.
I should have said yes. And your guides are like, we told you. You're like, shut up. I say no to you.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yes.
healthy and helpful.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my
Okay.
god,
So
so
much in there.
real.
So much in there. I'm very excited to have this conversation or this part of the conversation. So, for you, how have you been able to track back where you think the programming started? Where you were not allowed to say no?
you know I'll say this. There's gap years in my life, which recently we did a clearing that may or may not have
Oh,
explained it. And I've been trying to work through that in therapy as well. I'll have you know that clearing has been brought up a lot. Um, and there's the childhood years where I remember it being super happy, and I remember just constantly seeking out what I wanted, and constantly, being a child and just doing for myself. And then there's a gap in memory, and then teenage years hit where suddenly everything's not okay, and I think for me, with the ADHD and the bipolar, which is also potentially borderline because they all mimic each other when you have the three, um, it's it's about wanting to be accepted, and it's about wanting
mhm.
people to love me and wanting to not end up alone, and not deriving enough importance from myself that I have to derive importance from other people. So it's like I can't say no to other people. And that started from a very young age for me. Definitely, I would say probably middle school. Middle school would probably be
Mhm.
my time. Um, and yeah, just working through that has been,
That's
yeah.
huge. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Oh, of
huge.
course.
Um, so do you feel like people pleasing? I know that word gets bandied about a lot. Do you feel like that was coming into play because you just wanted the path of least resistance to acceptance?
Yes, I feel like, and this ties into the greater picture for me. But like, I've always had like a hole inside myself, and I didn't know that I needed to fill that hole with myself and with self love and acceptance. But also, when you're trans and you're traumatized and you have an unhealthy living situation and an unhealthy schooling, sorry, schooling situation, getting access to that self healing journey isn't necessarily a possibility at that age. So it's not like I could have done it anyway. And so I thought it was companionship, whether that be friendship or
Mhm.
usually otherwise, romantic or sexual. And so I was just
Not in
constantly
grade
trying to,
school. I just want to mention
yeah, that was high school.
okay,
Um,
thank you.
but like, although, I mean, that's a whole other conversation about like, when you are sexually abused as a kid, like those feelings come up way sooner than they should,
Yep.
and so I was always trying to
Which is
fill that
again
hole.
not saying no. It's
Yeah. Oh my god.
yeah.
Absolutely. and knowing how to say no to those side of things also comes into self-control, which is just another huge hard thing for me.
Yeah.
um and so I would say it was just about the function of filling that hole. That was the function of me not saying no. Um, and I am just now in the years where I am learning to fill that hole, and it's still a really really hard road and hard battle for me to do that. Um, so yeah, I would say that was the function of that. What about you? When did you realize you weren't saying no, or when did you first
Oh
start?
my gosh. You're always so succinct, and I'm more of a meandering kind of
Please
assessment
meander.
person. Um, so I was raised. This is those who have been listening to our podcast. First off, thank you. But you know that Jenny and I have a lot of similarities from our backgrounds. And then what fine tunes mine is we did not know this obviously as kids, but therapy. Both of my parents were narcissists, and my mother in particular was so off the charts. I'll give you a story that really ought to sum it up. Her second husband had tried to drink himself to death, and he had a massive coronary. And and we're thinking he tried to drink himself to death to get away from her. And I'm
Mm,
laughing because I'm a Gen Xer, but like I'm dead serious, y'all. And he had this near death experience, and he knew that if he didn't get sober, like that was it. Like he next time he drinks, he dies. So he chose to get sober, and my mother went to Al-Anon. So he's in AA, and she's doing Al-Anon, which is for the friends and family who are working with folks who are working with their addiction. And by the third meeting, they kicked her out and told her never to come back because she wouldn't stop talking. And it wasn't
wow.
about addiction. It was just whatever came into her head had to be verbalized. Another small little example is her best, quote unquote, best friend, right? One of the sweetest, nicest, meekest people left the state because she couldn't figure out how to say no to my mother. She couldn't figure out how to create boundaries, so she
Wow.
made borders and miles. Um, I have not engaged with my mother since my mid 20s because I read a book by M. Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled. And this is one of these gateway texts for a lot of the Gen Xers and possibly boomers. I don't know. I don't see boomers as being particularly self aware or interested, quite frankly, in, in self awareness. Um, but I remember reading the chapter that was like, look, narcissists don't change. Um, you have to stop responding the same way you always did. You have to learn to stop being angry that your mother is who she is because it's not going to change anything and it's going to destroy you. And I was like, oh, wait, I cannot get angry when she does these horrible things. Oh, it never occurred to me. Or worse, go into the caretaker mode of managing the
Hmm.
world to sort of apologize to the world that my mother was this energy vampire that was like literally just could suck all the oxygen out of every room she was ever in. There's a reason I hid in my room, you guys, for like 13 years straight. Stay
Mm.
away from her. Um, and she worked out most of her horribleness on my sister because I had made myself invisible. So I said no to, not that she was capable of mothering, but at some point I understood that there was not going to be any kind of nurturing in that house. So that was the first
Yeah.
no. And then I had to just accept that and be like, well, that's the way it is. And and man, let me tell you, going through the world just assuming that the world like is gonna cause damage on those kinds of levels, you're rejecting the world. So lots of my therapy has been about learning. Everybody's always said like, "Oh, Trey, oh, Trey, oh, Trey, you have this big heart, but like it's so closed, it's so closed." And I'm like, it would be closed too if you had my childhood,
Yeah.
and having to learn how to say yes to the positive things, but also identifying what the positive things are, because I still end up in situations where I don't say no, I don't recognize the red flags, I end up in too deep, and then suddenly I'm up at 3 a.m. trying to figure out where my flamethrower is and how to get out of town.
That was the end of part one. Be sure to tune in to part two later this week.